Hey, welcome everybody. We'll give a couple more minutes for folks to trickle in. If you could just go ahead and drop in the chat your response to this. So these are some of the categories that the FHWA has said are challenges facing the industry right now in terms of workforce retention. So just go ahead and respond to that in the chat if you would while we wait. All right. I was seeing quite a few answers coming in. I'll touch on that as we get going. Feel free to keep the chat rolling with that. But let's go ahead and dive into this because we got 40 minutes and I want to make sure we have time to get to our panel. So the discussion today is why you need veterans in your construction workforce and how to get the right ones. Just a couple housekeeping items. You're going to be muted throughout this presentation. There's a QA feature, so we're all using the chat right now. I love the chat. Keep it flowing. That's great. If you have a question, though, that you want answered by the panel at the end, please use that QA feature to the side for that. If you want to just chat on the side and have whatever sidebar conversations or poke fun at us while we talk, use that chat feature. That's fun, too. There will be a recording available for this presentation. Afterwards, there's also going to be a PDF document that gets sent out with some resources for you. So I'm going to be blowing through this very quickly, like I said, to get to our panel. So that PDF will have a lot of what I didn't fit into this presentation. So who am I? I'm Chase Blakey. I'm a veteran Marine Corps captain. Got out in the middle of COVID in February of 2020, got into construction technology and SaaS, came over here to Infotech. I was originally a product manager of Appia. Now I'm on the revenue side as an account executive. And today what we're going to be going over is why you need veterans on your team, who they are, tips for hiring and onboarding them. And then we're going to get to the meat and potatoes of this, the panel discussion with some really great industry experts. Now, what you'll notice is I am not that industry expert in terms of the construction side of the house. I have that military background, a lot of project management experience, and a lot of software experience, but I have not served in the construction industry. And so today with me, you're going to see some experts who do come from that space and from the public workspace, some of which are veterans, and they're going to weigh in and give you some real world context to some of the high level and academic backing that I'm going to present as just food for thought for us as we dig in. So the first thing I'll kind of address here is why are we talking about this and why veterans? And the challenge that we were originally positioned with was everyone knows there's a transition problem for veterans getting out of the military and finding gainful employment in the workforce. And that's because the resume that you see on a military record doesn't always match up one for what hiring managers are expecting. And what we're going to do today is try and show how we can make those things line up. And we've got some folks that are going to help us do that. And then also the challenges we see in the workforce are some of the things you guys just weighed in on in the chat. Okay. Chase, you look 12. Thanks, Carol. That was good. So you guys just weighed in on my age in the chat and a couple other things. So one of which was digital transformation. I'm seeing retention, diversity, attrition, aging workforce. So all of these elements are what I am going to walk us through related to a pretty big buzzword that many of you are familiar with. And I think it's really, really overused in a lot of industries, but it's leadership. Okay. And one of the dichotomy I want to draw for us here is the difference between leadership and subject matter expertise. Okay, so leadership is influenced by and in results, and subject matter expertise is really having the experience to know how to get stuff done in a particular field. And one of the things that we see at a high level in the civilian workforce is an elevation of subject matter expertise and tenure within organizations. And what I'll show here in the military is a little Top Gun reference for you guys. Is we kind of invert that. Okay, so the sliding scale of subject matter expertise moves more over to the decision-making realm. And what the military does really well compared to the civilian workforce is centralized command and decentralized execution. Okay, leadership gets pushed down through effective communication and really like finger in the chest type responsibility delegation to those lower units and those NCOs that I'll talk about, which is our lowest subject matter experts who are also our lowest level of unit leadership. And so in the military, you see it's much more about your ability to make a decision than it is about what you've already learned. And there's a concept called the OODA loop. John Boyd was a fighter pilot who pioneered this concept: observe, orient, decide, and act. And that is something that is ingrained through military training at a tactical level, at the lowest level, like a fighter pilot engaging with an enemy, all the way to the managerial and operational level and the strategic level of commands. How fast can we cycle those decision-making loops? How accurately can we do that? That's how we defeat an enemy. And those are the kinds of things that play out really well in the sort of concrete realities of something like construction and the construction industry, where results matter and there's real repercussions for failure. So let's dig in a little bit and talk concrete. So I just gave you some kind of pie in the sky concepts, like I said, but there's studies that have been done on this, and Syracuse University compiled a lot of findings that's been done over the years. And we're talking about the comparison of veterans to civilians in the workforce and what are some of the differences we see. So I didn't have time to really boil all of the points they had, but again, your PDF resource is going to have that for you. So I kind of gave you an acronym. The military, we love our acronyms. So I gave one for you here. The 4 A's of veterans in your civilian workforce, let's call it that. So accountable, adaptable, accurate decision makers, and ambitious. Okay, so veterans are accountable. The first point to that is they're 2 times more likely to be successful entrepreneurs than the national average. When we talk about adaptability, they're more comfortable in discontinuous or uncertain environments, and they assume higher levels of trust within a team because they're always used to being placed within different teams. Year over year, you get new folks. It's very constant. They're accurate decision makers. I already hit on this. We talked about our OODA loop, but this really comes from that concept of centralized command, decentralized execution, and pushing that responsibility down to the lowest possible level. The amount of responsibility that's placed on 18-year-olds, 22-year-olds when they step in the door is massive. A lot of money in terms of budgets, a lot of responsibility on the battlefield, a lot of responsibility that gets pushed down. The final thing I'll say is they're ambitious, okay? They bring great team building skills, a very high level of organizational commitment, and cross-cultural experiences due to the nature of moving every 2 to 3 years, working with people from all over the country, and they exhibit an extreme sense of ownership at every level. So again, these are vague. I have specifics. There's all of the data in this handout that you're going to get at the end, but this is the compilation of Syracuse's findings and the research that they came up with. Now, who are they? Okay, really quickly, I just want to touch on this. Some of y'all may be pretty familiar with the basic structure of the military. I just want to touch on a couple brief points, okay? So demographically, there's 16.2 million veterans currently, as of the VA's estimate in 2025, that are on the enlisted side, all right? So when we talk about enlisted and officer, there's a couple differences, and I'm just speaking in generalities here, but on the enlisted side is those folks you think of who come right out of high school, right? Or otherwise, they're not going through a commissioning program or something like that. They're your basically trained individuals who have enlisted. Then your NCOs are who I talked about. So these are 22 to 25-year-olds. There's your sergeants. They're the ones who are responsible for teams ranging from 2 to 20 throughout different levels of command. And many would say, I think there's a pretty broad argument that America's military's like specialty and what makes us special sits with that NCO Corps. That's kind of my favorite group to work with, because tactically and at a leadership level, they kind of bring everything to the table. And then you have your senior enlisteds, who are the ones who are the most experienced of those, who go all the way up from command level at a unit of a size of 300, all the way up to the Pentagon. Very wide range of experience. Today on our panel, we have two of these sections. We have someone who is a prior junior enlisted, Army Intelligence Specialist, Derek Mills. We also have Cedric Henson, who is a command sergeant major at the top of that enlisted pyramid with a wealth of leadership experience, who will weigh in. On the other side, this gets us a little bit into the concept of subject matter expertise and decision-making. So our warrant officers are subject matter experts. Okay, whether it's logistics, it's communications, it's weapons, whatever it is, they know more about those subjects than anyone else, and they're elevated in rank because of that, what they know. And then you get to these junior officers, right? And this is me. Carol, if you think I look 12 now, trust me, I looked 12 when I showed up as a fresh lieutenant to my unit in command of a platoon, and I had no experience. I had a bunch of training, no experience. And so the task before me was to sit there in a room full of these, combat hardened veterans that I'm in command of, and figure out, we got to hit all these missions, these administrative execution and readiness we have to do as a unit. How do I work with these folks and make sure we do it while also not stepping outside of my lane? And so that's where you see that teamwork come into play, where everyone brings what they have and they work as a team to get stuff done, knowing their lanes and making effective decisions together. Nobody has all the answers. You have to work as a team to do that. So then you just see as field grade officers and senior officers, as you go up the chain, they do that more and more at a higher level. Some of the folks that Cedric interacted with a lot. So real quick here, you may be familiar with a few of the units out there: the Air Force Red Horse Squadron in the construction side, the CBs on the Navy side, the Army Corps of Engineers. The Marine Corps does have combat engineers, but we're known more for blowing stuff up, I think, than the construction side of things. But they do exist. Those do exist. But this is just to show you that whatever you do have in the civilian world, it does exist in the military side for the most part. Okay. And there's different names for it. Now with AI and stuff, you guys can really kind of problem solve a lot of these lineups if you want. And there's even AI tools for resumes for military members to help map it up to the civilian job description. So that brings us to this last topic, is how to hire veterans. Okay. So there's really three really good places, and Brett is going to come in on this and he helped us kind of form this, but there's three really good places that you can start. Okay. University veteran departments. Brett Boudreau with BL Companies is on here today. He has a lot of experience in those departments. He's the director of recruiting at BL. This is kind of his favorite. He'll talk about that. We also have military specific hiring events and organizations you can lean on. You've got skill bridge and base transition programs as well. So I love the networking events, like Vets on Tap is a big one in the area. You go get a beer with veterans and just get to know them beyond the resume. But skill bridge is one I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about. If you haven't done this, you need to register, because it's 6 months that you get for an internship that you don't pay for, the DoD pays for, where they're coming into your organization and they're getting upskilled with those technical things that you want them to learn on the job. And then they're coming in with all the soft skills on top of that you get to take advantage of after those 6 months. So it's an incredible program. You guys, you just register. You can Google Skill Bridge, but I put the link on the resource as well. There's base transition programs as well. Everyone goes through a week of like how to build a resume, how to interview, all of this stuff. You guys can get plugged in with those base transition programs. That's the word. If you have bases near you, start networking with those bases and getting connected, because that's a great resource. Lastly, I mentioned you can engage with them. You can use AI to translate their skills. You can pull their performance evaluations. Military does have performance evaluations. You can ask for references from commanders. Get to know some of the key terms. I put some in this resource, but I'll give you guys my LinkedIn. You can connect me after if you have questions. And those strategic partnerships with folks like the veteran departments that we just mentioned, like definitely take advantage of those. And then a couple of things that are mostly like don'ts that I had to mention, because I see this a lot and nothing communicates. We say we hire veterans, but we really don't know anything about hiring veterans more than messing some of this stuff up. Okay. So first off, don't be tone deaf, partner with those who know. I think of like those stock images I see that show really jacked up regulations on uniforms and hair's all messed up and it looks like a foreign military uniform and it's like, we salute you for your service or whatever that you see. But if you're going to use an image, maybe consult with a veteran before you throw it up, because nothing says you don't really work with veterans more than something like that. And again, our panel will talk about develop trainable skills in-house and then recruit those untrainable soft skills from out of house. That's what I tried to show here in the quick time I had, what the veterans are really bringing to the table. And then make sure you're not micromanaging. A lot of them are accustomed to having a lot of responsibilities. So when you bring them in, make sure you empower them and communicate efficiently. So I am at my 15 minutes here, and I want to make sure that I flip it over to the panel and give them as much time as we can. We've got some great folks here. As I mentioned, Cedric Henson, Deputy Director of Public Works from Chattanooga, a retired Army veteran and Command Sergeant Major with us. We've got Derek Mills, is a project manager, civil engineering. He was an Army veteran specialist in intelligence community. and he's with HR Green now. He's a great example of using the GI Bill and getting into engineering. Can comment on that at great length. Brett Boudreau, who I've mentioned, Director of Recruitment and Talent Management at BL Companies, great resource for bridging that gap. How do we bridge the gap with veterans? And then Adam. Adam was the first guy I turned to. Adam DeWitowitz, decades of experience. He's our in-house guru here with the construction management, inspection, everything across the board. He was the first guy I turned to when I said, hey, I think there's something here. And he lit up. He was like, oh, yeah, we got a lot to talk about. So really excited to have these guys feed off of each other. And we'll bring the panel up here. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and make sure we've got everyone up here that we want. I think I've got my view the right way. But I want to flip this first to Brett. Brett, just because I just ended on how we're hiring veterans. Okay, there's more practical application here, and hopefully you've got some stuff to share. I know you've got a lot of thoughts on this, but I'd love to just have you open us up and respond to that component.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chase, for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. And, when we put in the chat, what are the challenges people are facing? We saw an aging workforce, a skills gap, being able to bring in and retain great people. And for us, a lot of times on the hiring side, we think about hiring those subject matter experts. We are looking for somebody that has this exact skill set that can fill this role that we need. We were struggling to bring on great people, right? When we took a step back and looked around, we looked at the people that were most successful in our organization. And really what they brought to the table was leadership at all levels. It didn't matter if they were a junior person. It didn't matter if they were a senior person, but they demonstrated those leadership qualities. So when we started to realize that somebody that has those leadership qualities can learn that subject matter expertise and come in and learn how to do the boundary surveys, learn how to do the sampling, learn what they need to in the field, well, then it became much more transparent that we should be hiring veterans because they've already done that at 18, at 20, at 24. They have these phenomenal leadership experiences that allow them to become subject matter experts, right? At some point, nobody knows what they don't know. So how can we teach them and give them the skills? And the people that are most set up for that are those veterans that have to learn on the fly, that have confidence in their ability, that are okay asking questions, that are going to do what it takes to get the job done. And when we started hiring for that perspective, it became much easier. And a lot of that was through talking to our veterans at our company. I come from a civilian perspective, so I wasn't able to translate the skills that somebody got in the military to our roles. So I worked with our people in-house and said, hey, can you talk to me about this role? What do you need them to know? And what can we teach them on the job? Because someone that has that leadership ability and has demonstrated that can learn. And that's what it's about. And then it's about creating opportunities for them to grow and develop and continue to build that leadership, because that's what they got in the military. They were learning and developing their leadership, so we need to do the same thing. And that goes to the retention component, right? You're going to keep people if they're growing, if they're building, if they're continuing to develop those leadership skills that they're accustomed to, that they're used to, and creating those opportunities. So for us, it started with really, how are we hiring? What are we looking for? What makes somebody successful at our organization? And who are those people that are going to be able to come in and learn? And when we did that, it became very clear, as I said, that the veterans were a great workforce that we could tap into. They're already coming with those skills built in. So we didn't have to teach that in-house.
What's the number one place you've found quality veterans to hire, Brett?
Through the GI Bill, particularly with the universities, because you go to those university career centers, they typically know the people who are the go-getters, the ones that have come and see them, that are taking advantage of all of those opportunities that have them. And I come from a career center background, so I could pick up the phone and say, hey, Susie, who are your best 3 or 4 people? Odds are 2 of those, 3 of those are going to be veterans that are being ambitious, that are going out and asking for opportunities, that are asking for help. They're asking to say, what else can I be doing? Where should I be looking? So just putting ourselves out there and saying, hey, we're open to hiring people with these leadership skill sets is going to get you a long way. And particularly those of you that are in places that have a lot of bases nearby. If you're in Colorado, if you're in those locations that have bases that a lot of people are taking advantage of the GI Bill, start there.
Great. Thanks. Yeah, we have a GI Bill guy in here, Derek Mills, as well. Hey, I'm using mine as well. I get my MBA at UF, so it's a great tool. It's really awesome. So that's a solid place to start. But let's go ahead and flip it to Cedric. Cedric, you've got, you're command sergeant major, loads of experience. I think probably the best perspective on the culture that is created in the military with junior leaders and and enlisted side and officer side as well. So could you just weigh in on with your lens, your perspective, and how that translates into the public workspace in the construction space?
Yeah, absolutely, Chase. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, and that is veterans and how we can really contribute to what we know as, or we commonly call, the civilian sector while we're in. Really hearing us talk and discuss about leadership. You know, what is that magic sauce? What does it really consist of, though, that I think you get when you're hiring a veteran? And it really circles back to the values that we are initially inculcated with. Chase, you talked about an acronym earlier and how we loved our acronyms. Well, we had one in the Army, and it was leadership, LDRSHIP. And that was loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. So from day one, you have soldiers that are coming in through basic training, and they're immediately being given these shared values that really, in the long run, we say is the foundational piece in building trust and building great teams. So a lot of times when you have a team member that comes on, you want someone that first and foremost has those values that are aligned with your organization. And you always get that with the veteran. Fast forward to that, once they come out of the basic training, we're immediately teaching individuals you are a leader no matter what echelon you're in. And they begin being taught what that means. How do I learn to delegate tasks? How do I learn to watch other members of my team and be able to be an effective a leader as well? And at every phase, whether it's a basic non-commissioned officer course, advanced, and all the way up to where I was eventually from an executive level, leadership is what we consider our key to success in all that we do. And that's what you're really getting from that veteran. The last piece I think that's important to understand when you think about hiring a veteran, something that we are consistently dealing with is continuous transformation, right? We see when people think about warfare, it is a military struggle, all right? It's a military struggle between two nations. And so that might be a little deep there, but what I want to be understood is that you're always transforming because that the person on the other side is moving and adapting as well. And so the veteran is always continually being asked to transform, adapt, and overcome in high risk, high complex situations. And so that's what you're getting from a veteran as well. That person that really has the ability to come in and adapt to new problem sets and be able to overcome those because as long as they have clear intent, that they're used to being able to say, I have my clear intent, I have the blueprint, I have my parameters, I'm going to make this happen. Veterans are always a dynamic contribution to any team out there.
Thanks. Yeah, I love what you said. I just wanted to comment briefly on that. The phrase that we use is the enemy always has a vote, right? And that's the dynamic nature of response. But I think there is a correlation of, like I mentioned before, the reality of what happens in the construction space. And there are real consequences when you're putting stuff in the ground and people are moving around with heavy equipment, just like there's real consequences in the military. Less so in other trades, maybe, right? Even in technology or whatever, where you can kind of navel gaze a little bit and fall in love with your process. You can't fall in love with your process in the military, just like you can't fall in love with your process in construction. So I think I appreciate you kind of pointing that out. Let me flip over to Adam to weigh in as well. If you could just, loads of experience in all around the construction industry from many angles, and like I said, our in-house guru here, and you've worked with veterans, I know, on multiple occasions. So I'd just love to get your thoughts on this, Adam.
Yeah, thanks for having me today, Chase. Yeah, in my last 15 years of my career, I've spent working alongside and hiring veterans in the construction engineering and inspection space. And just to hit on something that Cedric was just saying, I don't know that there's a better civilian example that's analogous to a battlefield than a construction site. when you consider how disruptive they are, how changing they are, how many, you go in with a plan, right? The military says, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. A lot of a lot of that applies to construction design, right? You can have a plan going in, but we always seem to find things that are unknown, things that change, things that have to be adapted to. And as someone who's worked alongside veterans and hired veterans, something that you talked about before, the OODA loop is something that's incredibly, incredibly important that can be difficult to teach. And with veterans coming in with that critical thinking skill, that ability to look at and adapt and overcome and critically think and come up with resolution on the spot, because that is what they are trained to do, is almost it's almost the top thing on my list. I can train the subject matter, right? The technical skills of things like inspecting soils or concrete or roadway projects. But to the point of this panel, what we've discussed so far, those softer skills take more time to develop. And on construction sites, you need to have people who understand how to hold people accountable, how to work within a framework, how to be able to critically think outside the box when problems arise. And to that end, I have had no better experience hiring or working alongside people than those who are veterans, for all of the reasons we've talked about to this point. They come in with all of those skills already built in at an age where they're highly adaptable to absorbing those skills, right? I mean, you're taught that, like you said, starting at 18. So you get that ingrained into you when you are, as a veteran, when you are really, forming into becoming an adult. So hiring coming out of the military, my experience has been they're fantastic. They can go right out to the field. They're highly dependable. They can make decisions, and the technical aspects can be taught, and they absorb those, like a sponge. And they make really, really great team members and really great leaders in the field.
Thanks, Adam. I want to get really pointed here, and I want to help you get us specific with where you see veterans, maybe some specific roles where you see that play out. And I think that's going to set us up nicely to go over to Derek, because I think he's got some good ideas on that as well. But yeah, can you weigh in on where you've seen, maybe just some high level, where you've seen veterans really succeed in the space?
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody listening to this knows that there's a lot of strength up and down the line. Me specifically, construction inspectors, senior inspectors, chief inspectors, quality control managers and quality control technicians are perfect. Resident engineers. Many of the veterans I know went on to either get licenses or certifications as construction managers, using their GI Bill to further their education in things like construction management. That is really, in to your point earlier, right? Those enlisted grades in the realm of construction, that's the enlisted grade equivalent, right? Those are the people that are out there doing the work, that are the subject matter experts day in and day out. And that's where we see them really hit the ground running and be most effective.
Thanks. Yeah. All right, Derek, I'm going to flip it to you. So we've got Derek on here, civil engineer. Great story. Junior enlisted, Intel specialist, got out, used that GI Bill, and is now working with HR Green and actively involved in the veteran community as well. So Derek, yeah, I just want your overall thoughts on this.
So yeah, as Chase indicated, my name is Derek Mills. I'm with HR Green, and I'm a professional engineer. I'm from a small town in Indiana by the name of Gas City. And I found that the military provided a great opportunity to go see the world. Well, in 2009, the military also decided that deploying to Iraq was in my future. And I got to see a complete different aspect of the world, which ultimately helped build into some of the service that I would continue to provide to communities and citizens across the country. I used my GI Bill to go to Texas Tech, get a professional engineering license through a civil engineering degree. Did that successfully. I have served many communities. I was the assistant city engineer of Fort Morgan, Colorado. I was a staff engineer of Leander, Texas during its giant boom period. And I have worked on the private side, finding just continual ways to continue that service that I began in the military. And that was some of the reasons I joined. Now, there are important aspects of that for veterans, because every veteran that chooses to serve our country is going to be somebody who wants to serve and wants to continue to do excellent work. They don't want to go to a job where you're just kind of chilling, not doing anything, not advancing. They want to have goals. They want to have things to achieve. They want to have objectives. They want to be challenged. So it's like any organization that is looking for somebody to really do something, a veteran is going to give them those expectations, and they're going to exceed them in many great ways.
Yeah, I like the example you give of when we talk about a discontinuous environment. You kind of mentioned like the logical thinking trails of a lot of folks in a project sense is going to be on the rails like a train. And what you get with veterans in a discontinuous environment of decision making is more of a sailboat out there in the ocean, able to adapt and respond to whatever. Can you touch too, Derek, on just some of the ideas, like if you were to have a plug and play model for some of the junior enlisted folks? And bringing them into this industry, what are some thoughts that would come to your mind on how that would work?
So one thing that comes from the junior enlisted, it's like we are taken completely raw, no experience, no anything, and we're thrown into some of the most dangerous, most expansive situations, and we're given a set of tools, and then we're told to go figure out a solution that meets the goal that you're being given. Now, your sergeants are going to give you guidance, your lieutenants are going to give you leadership, but each soldier has to make choices. They have to make themselves better. They have to find ways to engage, find solutions. Those solutions may not be what is by the book. Some of them are, but if a situation changes, that veteran is going to be adaptable, because that is how we have achieved our status as the greatest military in the world. To quote an enemy from World War II, the American military is chaos, but through that chaos, we are successful. And what that means in reality is there is no situation a veteran cannot handle.
Fire me up over there, man. I love it. All right, we're here at this. We got about 8 minutes left, and we got some time for questions. I haven't seen any come in. If y'all have a question, pop it in the QA. We've got, as you can see, varied expertise from different domains. But while we wait on a question, I just want to ask anybody on the panel who wants to jump in on this. Why don't we see more veterans in this industry, and what can we do to help address that?
So I think one of the things we can do as organizations, as companies, is to make sure we're setting veterans up for success, right? As kind of Derek was talking about, for us, yes, in our world, there are certain guidelines in which you need to be operating in. So as long as we set those guidelines, it's taking a step back and saying, hey, we need you to be successful and figure this out within these guardrails, right? And then letting them go, and then creating the structures through which the veterans can take advantage of those opportunities, and not saying, well, this is the only path you have to take in order to be successful, and redefining what success looks like, particularly for veterans. So there is some onus on companies to be ready to hire veterans, right? It's not as easy as a plug and play necessarily, because you want them to be set up for success, which then leads to a retention point. Because if you can bring those veterans in and then keep them for a long time, I can almost guarantee that they will rise to higher and higher leadership levels as long as you let them and you provide the opportunities and the support for them to grow. So part of it is that introspection from companies to be able to be set up for success.
Awesome.
Yeah, and if I could add into that, I think a part of the problem too, and you alluded to it earlier, Chase, is us understanding each other's speak. And so really being able to translate those hard and soft skills to be able to kind of show, I am the right fit for your organization. I think secondly to that also is that industries that are close to military bases are actually winning, right? So they understand, because they see it in their communities, what veterans bring, so on and so forth. But for the most part, if you don't have a post camp or station in and around you, I think it's lost on a lot of employers on the value added that a veteran will bring. So being able to understand this, forums like this, and people being educated, this is what it's going to take to bridge that gap.
Thanks. And we got a couple coming in here. I want to go. I know, Adam, you unmuted. So before I bring one of these questions, did you have a quick, can you do it in 10, 15 seconds?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think that one of the reasons and one of the things that should be thought about is how, to Cedric's point, your point, right, is how we signal the veterans that we're open to that. I think about, things that I, have put out at different times that, you need this qualification or you need that qualification, changing that language to be like, hey, are you a veteran with, that's interested in this, willing to train? We want to hire veterans. Like, you don't need all of the things that we traditionally would put in a job posting. We might need to signal differently to veterans so that when veterans are looking at this, they're like, I don't know if I fit that or not. Well, wow, I do fit that. I do fit what they're asking for, and they're willing to teach me the balance. And I think that opens the door for the veteran to understand that they can then walk through it versus trying to sift through, as Cedric put, how we speak differently on either side of this issue, whether we're the veteran or the hiring company. So signaling that way, really important.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, bringing veterans around helps when you're doing hiring activities and things like that, I would say. But okay, quick question I want to jump into here. How do veterans deal with environments that are less firm than in the Army or the military? Can they cope easily with these new working environments, deal with colleagues that are not familiar with a strict environment like the Army? I think this is a really good question because it hits on that. I think there's a lot of stereotypes and maybe recency biases that occur with military. So how do we deal with somebody who's been in this environment and transitioning to the civilian world? What are some of the things we've seen there, and what's worked in making that come into fruition?
I'll just give a personal experience. I was thrown into project management for a community that hasn't done greenfield construction in 20 years. The city staff and everything looked at that and wanted to have its success, so I was the effective manager of it. But the one thing that I needed and they provided me was, when I had questions, when I had instances that I was not able to handle on my own, I was able to easily go to the staff of the city and find solutions and find aid. But that project was finished ahead of schedule and under budget, which for something that the city hasn't done in many years, I would say is a resounding success.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, Chase, quickly here. I had a coworker that worked with me, who was a veteran that we brought in, and when he came on, was very much black and white as an inspector in the field, which was great. DOT loved him because of that, but not everything is black and white, right? In construction sometimes. But to Derek's point, coming from that stricter framework and then working with others in the organization to understand the limits that he could relax that down, significantly better than having somebody in the field who does not have the backbone and allows the contractor to get away with whatever they want. I'll take somebody who's too strict and teach them how to relax that back for the civilian world any day over somebody I have to constantly coach to have more backbone, who may or may not ever grow it because that may not be their personality, right? Veterans come in with that default strictness, and they can learn to kind of soften that up a little bit for the civilian world much easier than the other way around.
Yeah, and there's nuance. Go ahead, Cedric. Go ahead.
And yeah, I totally agree with Adam. I want everybody to just really remember this term, adaptability, and that's what the soldier is. That's who the veteran you're going to receive. They're going to be adaptive to this, right? And they're also, so they're going to be adaptive to your leadership as well. Every situation is different, for a veteran, and the environments that we're placed in. And so, we understand then sometimes we have to scale it back. Sometimes we have to be more direct, right? But that's what leadership is. And so being able to adjust and adapt, veterans are great at it, just need the opportunity. Yeah.
And well, unfortunately, we're at time, so I got to cut us off here. We do want to continue this conversation in other avenues. Tosh is going to drop a resource if she hasn't yet with the PDF that we have for y'all. A couple questions that didn't get answered. Connect with me. I can answer those. There's some really good ones in there about more specifics. We can get Brett plugged into more specifics on hiring. and get you connected with, there's folks at Recruit Military who are good at this as well. So please take a look at the PDF, connect with me on LinkedIn, connect with all of us, reach out via email. Let's continue the discussion. Whatever questions you have, you can ask at any time. So we're happy to help with that, but we got to end the session. So y'all hop on to the next one, and thanks for your time. And I think the next session kicks off in about 4 minutes. So if anyone's here still, you can drop out of this one, go back to the event lobby and find the next session you want to attend.